Hey guys, it's Conf Hollywood Studios here, and today we are here to talk about the newly reopened El Toro. As many of you know, El Toro was closed for a significant portion of last season due to an incident that occurred in June. The ride was shut down from June 29th all the way until April 2nd, 2022, which was opening day this year. If you've seen the vlog from opening day that was posted to the channel, you would know that we were lucky enough to get on the first public train on El Toro ever since June of last year. I was actually able to get front row too, and it was a great experience. Since then, I've ridden El Toro a total of 30 times in the 2022 season, and I think it's safe to say that I have a pretty good judgment on how El Toro is running this year, and I'm going to preface this now. There are a lot of changes to El Toro. Most are very, very positive. So let's start off with when you actually go to El Toro. The queue is unchanged. The only addition to the queue is the fact that there's now a single rider line, which is absolutely spectacular. If you don't know, you actually walk up the ADA ramp, so you're going to walk in the exit, you're going to keep walking and go straight from where you would normally exit, and that brings you over towards the drop of El Toro, and right there's a ramp, and that acts as both the ADA entrance and the single rider line. The way the single rider line works is that an employee will count how many open seats there are on the train, let you in through the back entrance, and you fill in those empty seats. It's a very great system. Other than that though, there are no changes to the ride's queue, and the same can be said about the trains, at least from what we can see. I'm sure there had to be some work done, especially on A train car 6, because that is the train that had the incident last year, but visually there really aren't any changes to the trains. B train still has the Kia Soul wrap, and A train still looks the same. The restraints feel exactly the same as they used to, same with the seatbelts. I do think they replaced a lot of the seatbelts, if not all the seatbelts, because they did not look as faded. They looked brand new, and they clicked very easily too, which was great. The operators were also not very staple heavy, so that was really, really nice to be able to enjoy the ride, not get stapled like you do on other coasters at other parks. It was great to see that the operators are still doing great jobs, both getting trains out quickly and ensuring that riders are safe and comfortable. When the ride does begin, you're still going to go out the same turn you always go up, and go up the cable lift hill. The cable lift hill is just as great as it always was. It's super fast, super smooth, and just such a great lift hill. Probably one of the best lift hills on any coaster. Once you get to the top, you still slow down pretty heavily as you used to. This is to avoid the upstop wheels hitting the track when you're going over that, because back when the ride first opened, because of how fast the train was going up the cable lift, the upstop wheels would wind up smacking the bottom of the track on the top of the lift hill, so they had to slow it down so that they would put less wear on the track there. But you go through the nice slow turn where you get a great view of what is now Medusa, the Safari, and of course King Ka before you plunge down that first drop. Now, if you've been following El Toro's situation, you would know that there's a lot of steel bracing added to high uplift forces where you would experience those on the ride. One of those being the first drop on El Toro. When you look, you can see a lot of pieces of steel in the track in between the two rails, and the drop definitely feels a little different. I noticed it a lot more on opening day, where you could definitely feel that the drop maybe wasn't as insane as it usually is. It felt a little more contained, and not like the track was moving as much or the trains had as much room to move. It felt like it was definitely a little more contained. But on my more recent rides on Sunday, it definitely felt a lot more out of control like the way it used to, and you still get incredible ejector airtime no matter where you sit. The drop definitely has not really changed. The airtime is still just as great. I think it's just a bit smoother than it used to be, and that's definitely something I noticed throughout the whole ride. The whole ride's a lot smoother than it used to be before 2021. But you go up those first Camelback hills, and they still give absolutely insane airtime. I still think the best way to experience these Camelbacks is in the front of the train, either in car 1 or car 2. Any of the rows in those cars is absolutely perfect to experience those elements. However, when you ride in the very back row, you get absolutely pulled over those hills, and you get absolutely insane ejector airtime going through those two hills. This was the case last year, but I've especially noticed this year that rows like row 3 and row 4 give really, really insane ejector airtime over the hills. It's such a strong force, I can't even explain it. Just the way you get pulled up out of your seat with the airtime, it really is something you all need to experience. I know everyone says when you go on El Toro you have to ride the back row, But honestly, I think in addition to the back row, you should definitely focus on rows like 3 and 4, not even the very front row. Row 2 is great, but row 3 and 4 are probably my favorite rows in the front half of the train. They're really just insane. You get great airtime, and while they're not necessarily as smooth as a non-wheeled seat, I think it adds to that more out of control feeling that El Toro has that makes it feel like a wooden coaster, which is why I like it so much. Going up into the turnaround, I noticed that the airtime pop you get going up into the turnaround, especially when you're on the left side of the train, is a lot more pronounced. I was getting absolutely flung up out of my seat, especially in the front half of the train when you're banking into that turnaround. It's a really surprising and great aspect of the ride. Now, another big change for the ride is the bottom of the turnaround where you're pulling the most strong positive G-forces. I know many people have complained in the past that the turnaround is probably the roughest part of the ride, and in the past I would definitely agree. Of course, it's nowhere near as bad as other wooden coasters are, since El Toro is one of the smoothest roller coasters out there, especially for a wooden coaster. But I don't know what they did in that turnaround, but it is so smooth going through there. You don't even have to ride on a non-wheeled seat for El Toro to be super comfortable. I've ridden most of the time on wheeled seats in the front or the back, and the turnaround is still very smooth. I don't get any painful jackhammering in my back or anything. It's very smooth and enjoyable. When you go up into the drop off the turnaround, when you're sitting in the back rows, you still get that nice pop of flagector airtime before you head into the 2 floater hills. The floater hills are still just the same way they are. It's still running a little slow since on my 2 visits so far this year, it's definitely been a lot colder than it normally would, say during spring or summer. So if you are going to Great Adventure on a colder day, just know that El Toro may seem like it's running slow. That's because it just hasn't gotten the time to warm up yet. Once it warms up though, it flies, just like it did last year. But this year, the floater hills, they are solid. There aren't anything crazy yet, but like I said, once the ride warms up, I think it'll be running insane. Then, the moment of truth, the Rolling Thunder Hill. Now, most of my rides on El Toro were in the morning, but I did have quite a few in the afternoon. And there's a big difference between riding it in the morning and even just waiting a couple hours for it to warm up a bit more. In the morning, the Rolling Thunder Hill really didn't hit much at all. That's also because of the fact that it was cold, it needed time to warm up. But once it got later in the day, the Rolling Thunder Hill was hitting pretty good. It wasn't as strong as it was last year, but like I said, I think the ride still needs some more time to warm up for the Rolling Thunder Hill to really be back to its full potential. But the Rolling Thunder Hill felt absolutely great, both in the very front and the very back. It's never been the greatest element in the middle cars of the train, but when you're riding very front or very back, you get some very powerful ejector airtime. Then of course you enter the twister section. I also noticed that most of the twister section felt very smooth. There was only probably one part I noticed that was a little rougher than it used to be. When you're exiting the helix part of the ride and you're going up into the first twist, I noticed it does kind of shake around a little more than it used to right there. But other than that, there's really no rough parts in the twister section. I found it to be really smooth, and overall the ride as a whole was a lot smoother and probably a bit more comfortable and easy to handle than it was last year. I'm not saying it was rough last year, but it was absolutely unhinged last year. It was running fast and it wasn't necessarily the smoothest. This year though, they've definitely done a lot of work to make it very smooth, and it feels really smooth. Once you go through the 2 twists, you hit the brake run, and that concludes your ride on El Toro in 2022. Now, I do think I need to get some more warmed up rides, and I'm sure I will update you guys on how El Toro is running come the summertime when it's had more time to warm up and the weather is naturally warmer. But so far, El Toro has been absolutely incredible in 2022. Still holds up as the best coaster at Great Adventure in my opinion, and definitely get to Great Adventure to check out El Toro in 2022 as soon as you possibly can. It's running absolutely great, and definitely try to get some of the rows I suggested, like the back row or rows 3 or 4. Those are some really great rows. But if you guys have any other questions, comments, or concerns about El Toro in 2022, be sure to leave them in the comment section below. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe to Hollywood Studios, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye, guys.